Hey, what's up, guys? Node Investor here. How is everyone doing today? We'll give it a sec here. I just posted the link. So hopefully some more folks will join us. Feel free to drop a hello, a comment, a good morning, good evening, wherever you may be. We'll be looking at the charts here, going on in terms of what this market is doing next. We've seen a pretty good little pop yesterday. Finally, it was getting a little impatient there for me. I was testing the patience. I was holding some positions. We did a live stream at the start of the week. I was expecting a little bit of bounce action, and we got it. I basically and I'll rehash some of this throughout the stream, but I've started to scale out a lot out of most of my trades now. I'm still holding some BTC long, but most of the other trades, or all of the other trades, have been closed out, hit the targets. Now I'm just looking at this and going to be patient to see if we get a pullback, where that lands. If strength continues to show up, then good. We'll take it as it goes and jump back on breakouts or whatever else happens. But one thing at a time for now. Considering all things considered, right, the market is not exactly a high volatility market. It's just been a choppy sideways market for the last week. So all things considered, I had at least through today, it's been a pretty decent week. So I'm going to just kind of scale out and just take it easy here and see what goes on next. We'll cover the stock market too. Market has been a roller coaster this week, up and down, and we'll look at a few of those names here. As you know, took some trades there in the morning. It was a quick day for me, luckily. Took a few quick trades, hit the targets, met the goal for the day, and calling it done. No need to press the issue there. But hello from Spain, Los Angeles in the house. Hey Melissa, how are you? And who else we got going on here? We got some of the Node insiders coming in. Steven, awesome, good stuff, my friends. Shorting. I wouldn't be against shorting here, potentially, but I think the big short trade has been played out, and that was this, right? I mean, there was plenty of short opportunities along the way. You could probably scalp some shorts on the way down, but I'm starting to wonder if, at this point, start looking for potential long sides. Even if we do see some pullbacks, I'm thinking the big trade now is going to be looking for some potential reversal. We haven't seen that yet. Like I said, there's no confirmation. If you caught the stream at the beginning of the week, I said, yeah, this is a low being put in, and that's continued to make higher highs. But now I didn't say it was the low, right? It was a low. Is it the low? It's way too early to tell, and most of the time that's going to be in the rearview mirror by the time we say, yep, that was the low. But I'm expecting some choppy sideways pullback action on the higher time frames on the daily chart. And then that'll start to give us some more clues as to, when the bigger low is starting to look like it's in. But just keep in mind, I'm still thinking this big picture head and shoulders pattern is going to play out. How that ultimately looks when it's all done is anyone's guess, but I'm still in the big picture looking at that potential setup. But near term, there was some good bounce opportunities. Yesterday was kind of decision time, right? We had that rally into the start of the week, and I was thinking we'd pull back and then break through that 9100, and it was just like the grind. The market just got stale, and it was going on. What's happening here? And we were retesting the lows again from the third, and then we retested them yesterday. And it was funny because I posted a chart in the Slack group saying, well, the bulls are going to show up. It's here. And the reason I was looking at that was for two things, right? It was one, this support back here, but there's also support lined up with this, right? That was the breakout level. And usually that's the best indicators you can use, is just pure price support levels, because that's not a derivative of anything, right? Every other indicator is a derivative of price. But when you're using just pure horizontal price support and resistance, that is price. That is a turning point. That is the place in time or in price where the buyers and sellers were showing up. And so they often make sense to look at those first. And we saw that support hold. That was good news. And then out of nowhere, just kind of the big pop on the hourly, and that continued to lead over the last several candles into some upside action. All good stuff. But like I said, if it hit the targets on the bounce, now I'm getting cautious again. Gonna take it easy, scale out here. And so let's take a look at Bitcoin first, because let me clear all this stuff here. Just to kind of recap here, my bounce targets on the BTC side, and there was two, right? The first one was the daily 10 EMA, which we hit almost to the penny here on that first day, and then basically the last 2 days was just really slow market, not a whole lot going on. I held my longs, it tested my patience, but luckily it played out here and finally cracked to the upside. Next upside target for me was around 9,200 slash the 22 daily EMA. And you can see the daily 22 EMA is on, at least on Binance here, it's around 9170. And so we came pretty close to that. If we go to something like Coinbase here, it was a little bit closer, but basically 9170. So we've hit most of those, right? Those two targets. Now, if we bounce, continue higher, and we finally take out that 22 EMA, then the next range is a relatively wide range. So it's kind of anywhere in between here could decide to turn tail and then look for that higher low. That range is basically over 9,200 up to 9,600, right? So that's a pretty wide range. And again, that's just simply using, you know, these prior support levels that finally cracked, tend to be places where the selling shows up. You get a little bit of testing, and if it just blasts through that, then things look much better. But I'm not expecting this V bottom where we get a straight down and then all of a sudden it's just like straight back up off to the races. If it does, I mean, that's super bullish, but I'm just not expecting that. That's generally, you know, not the way things play out. It's happened, yeah, but that's just generally not the way it plays out. More often than not, you're going to get some backfilling, some testing, maybe the highs right here and you get a higher low, or maybe it continues higher and then you get a higher low. And there's just a lot of ways it could play out. But now that we've seen a little bit of a bounce, and again, not on very strong volume just yet, time to maybe wait and see how things play out next. That's the way I'm taking this approach. So that's my thoughts right now. Again, first target was this around 9K, basically hit that. Next target was just shy of 9,200, came pretty close to that. There's plenty of time left on this current daily candle. I mean, there's a lot of time left, several hours still go, but on the altcoin sides, a lot of those hit my targets late yesterday and overnight, and so I've pretty much scaled out of those guys and gonna wait and see how this one goes. So thanks for the likes, appreciate the comments. Hello from Kuwait City. Let's see here, Matic, we'll look at Matic, we'll look at Link. So the names on my list right now: BTC, ETH, Link, Tezos, Binance Coin, Icon, HBAR, and Mana. If you caught the stream on Monday, those are a lot of the names that I was looking at as potential bounce names. Top of my list was probably Tezos. HBAR was a good candidate. ICX wasn't looking bad. Link, of course, was the leader, and it continued to do well. There's an old saying, right? Strength begets strength, and typically you're not bad by betting on something that's already been strong and looking for that strength to continue. And we saw that in Link. So good stuff. But let's take a pause, go to the big picture market cap. Let's go look at the market cap first, and then we'll come back and deep dive some of these charts here. So looking at the broader crypto space here, again, just kind of following suit with Bitcoin. We saw this pullback down to 235. Now we're seeing this bounce to the 250s, but not a lot of movement. Again, just kind of a consolidation week on the lower time frames. Yeah, definitely some trade opportunities, some scalps on some of the altcoins that have been leading. There have been some really good trades to be had in those names, but again, I'm thinking they're just quicker trades, right? Maybe a few days or so is how I'm approaching it, and just kind of booking gains as I get them, and just kind of waiting, right? Just being patient and waiting for the broader momentum to come back into the space. And then at that point, I'll be a little bit more patient, hold trades longer, and get more aggressive on the long side. But until then, I'll take my gains when I can get them, and be happy with that for now, and not give back too much on the consolidation, because these choppy markets, if you're not careful, you can overtrade them and you end up giving back a lot of the gains that you previously had. So you got to be careful with that. So that's the broader crypto market space there. The BTC dominance, you know, it's kind of just sitting tight here around that 65%. It could continue lower from here. We've already reached as high as 66, but if it goes higher, 60, you know, 67, 68 is kind of the next level that I'm looking at on that side if it continues to rally. If Bitcoin drops another leg here to the downside, it would not surprise me to see this Bitcoin dominance pop just a little bit more and hit that target before we get the altcoin resumption in terms of outperformance. Hence, alt season, as we like to say it around here. So that's kind of what I'm looking for if Bitcoin pulls back here a little bit more aggressively. So if not, then great, right? Alts continue to rally, but near term, I'm thinking we see some of this. Let's see here. Going to some of those alt names before we do that. Let's see the Node Insiders. So for those of you that are not familiar, this is the new Node Insiders site, along with the alerts that were previously on the other site and the top BMI watch list that was on the other side. We added a whole bunch of new features. We've got this trending list, which is automated, and it just refreshes real time every few hours here. We've got the trading bot strategies, and they've been choppy. The daily strategy has been short for the better part of a week now, but the 4 hour I noticed was short, and then it went flat a couple days ago. Then it went short yesterday when things looked like they're about to crack, and then it's flat again in the evening when Bitcoin rallied. So this one has certainly been getting some whipsaw because of the markets here lately. But you can see here it's still kind of just flashing caution. That's coming from red. So when you're going from red to yellow, it's more of a neutral zone bounce trade, versus when you're going from green to yellow, it's much more strong pullback entry type of thing. But some of the names at the top of the trending list this morning: Wanchain, Icon, Bitcoin Gold, that thing's still around, Constellation, some small cap names here, Energy, Cryptorium, remember that one was cracking that downtrend here. Theta looking pretty good. 0x is showing some good life here. Ocean Protocol, Ren has been on the list for quite some time now. Tomo Chain off and on. Power has been on the list for quite some time. KuCoin Shares has been on here. Keybird Network has been on here for the better part of a week and a half or so. Matic, I noticed, was on here, so we'll definitely take a look at that. Loom, Chainlink, and a handful of others. So let's go take a look at some of these names here, starting with ETH first. I'm going to start with the ETH BTC pair. This is one that I was thinking would outperform, and I had some longs on this guy, which I have now closed out because honestly, this looks really bearish to me now. Very quickly, it has changed from I'm thinking this bounces to I'm thinking this drops another leg here. And so honestly, I'm kind of considering going short ETH BTC, holding long Bitcoin, holding short ETH if we do see another pullback as a little bit of a hedge. But this one is still looking like it wants to pull back a little bit further. There has been some support here established. If it cracks below that, there really is not a lot of support on the way down until around here. So, you know, it's kind of like no man's land at that point. It could bounce anywhere along the way, but that's a pretty wide range. So I'm out of the way for now on the ETH BTC side and just gonna wait to see what happens here. Nothing for me to do, but again, probably wouldn't be a bad short trade here. Long Bitcoin, short ETH, a little bit of a hedge there. And I mean, that's not a wide range. How big is that here? That's, you know, it's about 8-10%. So not like super wide, but with margin and all that certainly would be worth my while. But for now, out of the way, ETH USD here. Not that guy. This guy here. Was looking interesting here. Finally cracked this downtrend, pulled back, but hasn't had as strong of a breakout. Remember, a lot of these alts had a very similar pattern. You know, they had this kind of downtrend, this choppy sideways action, retested support, and then Monday just started to crack to the upside. But ETH has been a little bit of a laggard. It's still below this broader resistance. And so on the USD side, you know, if the market decides to turn tail and get higher, go higher from here, then this one is a good breakout candidate from the USD pair, but not until 235 is recaptured, in my opinion. So $235 over that. If it starts to hold, then it looks much more positive. And then at that point, you're looking for 250 to 260s or so. But for now, I'm thinking this is right at resistance. The BTC pair looks like it wants to crack. So it might not actually be a bad downside trade here. And how I would do that if I was trading it, I don't have any positions on this one yet, but if I was trading it, this is generally how I'll take a short trade on this guy. You know, I'd keep a really tight stop just above resistance because that proves that you're wrong. And then I would start to scale out right into support and then maybe hold some to see if it cracks below. But generally, that's support, that's your target. That puts you at about 2.5 to 1 on the risk reward ratio, which is not bad. And of course, anything below that is just extra and great. But that's how I'd be looking at it. It'd be, again, just like the rest of the week has been, mostly quick trades, relatively small scalp type of action there. But ETH, caution remains for now. Looking at Link has been one of the leaders. Had a very nice move, just continues to do well. Again, this was almost a perfect throwback entry when the market pulled back, came right back to the breakout point and very quickly puffed off that with some really strong volume. Everything you want to see. Has continued higher. So far, pullbacks have been viable. You had a pretty decent pullback here. And again, this is when we did the live stream on Monday. We were looking at Link pulling back, and then the volume started to come back in. Definitely the top pick of the week, other than like maybe Tezos for me. But this was the top pick, and it just continues to show some resilience. Outperforming Bitcoin on the way up. This is the Link BTC pair, by the way, and looking positive. However, it has had a pretty decent run. With all of these, I'd be more inclined to look at the pullbacks versus chasing the breakouts, but just keep an eye on the pullbacks. If it does pull back here, then first one is always the 22 EMA, but below that, the prior breakout point, which on this pair is going to be around that 5,000 Satoshi. You want to see it hold above that, but for now, the trend is your friend. It's still looking pretty good on the daily chart. Has plenty of room to run if it wants to continue higher, but there are some bearish divergences showing up here on this most recent leg. RSI is starting to lag here a little bit, so is the MACD, and so maybe that's it. Maybe the trade is done. It's been a good trade, but if Bitcoin decides to turn tail to the downside and retest 8K or whatever, then I would expect Link, along with everything else, would follow suit and also see some red. So just my thoughts. But if things continue higher, Link is a leader, continues to look really good on that side. Tezos. So Tezos was another one. I did finally close this guy out. Hit most of my targets. Again, was just looking for a bounce. Nothing spectacular. If it continues higher from here, fantastic. But my objectives have been met on this guy. And what I was looking for was a breakout. So I preempted the breakout here. I saw this, this little range being established. I saw support tested, and that was my entry point. Once it started to push off of this support, I started to add positions, and I did 3 buys on this guy. I didn't do all in that one point. I added here, it pulled back, I added a little more, I added a little more, and then it was like, okay, go. And then it did nothing for about a day and a half. Finally, started to show some life about a day and a half ago. Started to break out, pulled back, and then yesterday when it started to hit these numbers, I started to take profits here. 315, 320, 330 were my targets on the upside, and it pretty much scaled out. But it may not be done. This one is pulling back, and it's still well above the moving averages, so it could just pull back here and get going again, maybe pull back to the 22 / the prior breakout point, and then get going again. So definitely not saying it's over, but from the quick trade that I was looking for me, the trade was there, and it turned out to be about a 16-17% trade, which is all I was looking for. 15 to 20% is what I was thinking, with a little bit of margin on that, so that helped. But at this point, I'm gonna just sit tight, see what it does. But nice little pump to the upside, hit resistance almost perfectly. Look at that again, just a simple horizontal price targets. That's where sellers start to show up. Doesn't mean it's done. It could just be a pause, pullback, and then you get a breakout. If you do get a breakout, even better. Then at that point, your next target is around $3.80 on the upside. And then after that, you're looking at new highs. And again, keep in mind that Tezos was one of the stronger names. Needed a pullback. It did. But some part of me thinks this might be a lower high, and we're going to get another leg down before it's over. So I'm still playing this one cautiously. But it's been a nice little support base that formed on the daily, and could certainly just blast right through that 380 and just keep going, right? The volume could just come back in. The daily RSI has been completely reset from that extreme overbought condition, pulled right back to the 40. If you follow my ABCs of RSI course, where the 40, staying above 40 keeps it in the bull zone. That did that. Now you want to see this thing just start taking off again. So it has plenty of room to run, again, from a longer term perspective. But again, I'd like to just see some more sideways action and bigger consolidation on the daily before breaking higher, but still one of the stronger names out there. Looking at it from the BTC pair real quick, probably not a lot of difference there. I mean, again, has had a nice outperformance versus Bitcoin. Came right back to this support target there, very similar to the USD pair, and just kind of met those objectives. Now pulling back to the daily, or excuse me, the 4-hour, 10 EMA, and then below that, if it continues to hold, above this 22 EMA, that might not be a bad throwback entry point. So something to keep an eye on this one here, which is basically right where it's at now. So might not be a bad one to kind of relook at, but for now, I'm neutral on this one again. BNB, looking at the Binance Coin here. I know, ooh, messy chart here. Let me clear some of my mess up here. I know I'm not on this one. I know some of you guys on the Slack group have been taking a look at this one. Potential breakout candidate, I would agree. It's testing this resistance again. The volume's coming in, so definitely one to watch. But it's already had a pretty good little bounce. The more important thing I'd be watching on this guy is this lower trend line. If it starts to bounce right into resistance and then it starts to lose that and just crack below, then I'd be looking at the daily time frame for like a higher low or a double bottom or something to form, at that point. So just something to watch on the BNB. Let's see how it looks on the USD side, because that's generally the way I like to trade this one, is the USD pair, not the BNB pair. But let's see here. This is a good breakout already. You've seen the pop pulling back a little bit right now, but has room to run if it wants to. Again, just like many of these others, pretty simple. Bounce right up. Whoops. Bounce right up to this first target here on the resistance. If it continues higher, then you're looking at $23 as your next target. Icon turned out to be a nice one here this week. Very good trade. We were looking at this one as a bounce target. It started to break out here after we did that live stream, and it gave you a chance. It broke out, and look at this, almost near perfect throwback entry on this bounce, right? So you had a breakout, and then you had a little bit of a pullback, and then it was off to the races. But this has been a good one. Very nice. Again, this one was one to watch because it hit this 618, started to hold it. And then I was looking for the retracement levels as your next targets, and it did, right? So it hit the 50%, pulled back to the breakout point, and then it was just like one fell swoop, went up to the 382. You're seeing that pullback happen now, but that trade's been played out in my opinion. That was the trade, right? That was the trade to be watching for this week. And from here now, it's kind of like, does it settle out? But man, nice little 35% pop. If you caught most of that, if you caught just the breakout, still 25% move versus Bitcoin. Can't complain. Very good stuff there. USD side. Similar action, right? You had the breakout, the throwback, and if you caught that on the breakouts, again, look at where it's at, where it's pausing right now, basically right at this resistance here, came just shy of that. So makes sense that it at least is going to take a little bit of a breather here, but what a nice spike to the upside with the volume there. But they move quick both ways, up and down. H-bar was another one we had on the list on, was that Monday? Yeah, Monday. And was looking for some more bounce. We saw that. It got a little bit of a bounce quickly after the stream. It broke out here. Went up about 20%. And again, this one moves quick, so it doesn't look like much on the chart, but that's a 20% move. But then it's just kind of very quickly giving a lot of that back. So you got to be quick on those. Those are a little bit tougher to trade, in my opinion, especially when they're just bounce trades, because, after fully retracing, it's generally not that healthy to see it fully retrace. And it couldn't even quite get to the next target that I was looking for, which was around that 550 level. So it didn't quite meet the objective. Maybe it has a throwback entry here and then finally does and goes to there. But I think a lot of that has already been there. But not bad if you caught some of that. I mean, that was a pretty decent little trade on H-bar. All right. Mana was the other one that was on the list here. That one had a pretty good little bounce trade too. Also hit the targets on that bad boy there. Basically, the prior support became new resistance, and that's where I was looking for a pause. You're seeing it, but it doesn't look too bad yet, so it could just be a little bit of a bull flag, pausing right below support or resistance, and now looking for a break higher. So definitely still one to keep an eye on. But again, it had a nice setup, right? You had that pullback, a little bit of a double bottom, and then the rally. And the setup here was more on the USD pair. The charts look almost the same, but the setup was on the USD side. If you look at, let me see which chart I had marked up here. I think it was Coinbase. No, it was on Huobi. And so that was really the setup, right? It was looking at this prior breakout point here in around that 3.8 cent mark. And then, of course, you had the rally, a little double top going into the go live. I was expecting a pullback down to the 3/2 found that little double bottom. That was really the setup we were watching here on Monday. A little bit of a bounce trade. Hasn't quite hit the target on the bounce trade from the USD side, but still looking pretty good here. Not a monster move either, right? Again, these are just reversal trades. They're much tougher to trade, but you know, you're still up about 23%. So not a bad little trade for a few days. So that's what I was looking at. It could go higher. Target for me is going to be about 5 cents. If it hits that, I think that's going to be the wall for now, and then some resetting from there. And that was it on my list. Those are the names that we were looking at, some of the names at the start of the week. I'm sure there was a few others. We looked at quite a few, but those are kind of the top names here. Let's go through some of these and let me see what's going on in the comments there. We want to look at Neo, Lisk. Yeah, we'll take a look at Lisk, XRP. Let me see here. What else? Litecoin, Vertcoin. I see Vertcoin is on the trending list right now. BAT, absolutely, BAT. The basic attention. Oh, Matic. I forgot Matic. And let's see what else here. Matic, WRX. No, I didn't do that one. That one has had quite to the move already. I think I got all of those. I'm just reading the comments here. One sec. Neolisk. Okay. Ocean. ETH. We just did ETH. I haven't done power. We'll do power. All right. That's what is that? 6. That's 9 names. So let's see if I can get through those first, and then I'll add a few more. I'll put engine and some of those on the list as well here. Let me take a swig of my coffee. Even though it's almost 9 a.m., I'm still drinking my coffee. And I'm not being a total bum here. I was up early. I was here in the office before the market opened. I did my stock trading. I did my other stuff. And then now here we go, live stream. Speaking of the stock market's getting smackarood here. Up, down. What a week it's been. Most of my 2 trades this week were basically, or this morning, were Zoom and Eno Pharmaceuticals. It's a coronavirus trade, COVID-19, whatever you want to call it. That was basically my trade setup. I traded this one yesterday as well. It was way crazier yesterday, just all over the place. But took a little bounce trade on it this morning. It was nice. Zoom has been one of the big winners here today. Very nice trade. And again, doesn't look like a whole lot, but this is pretty significant because it opened up at $110 and the peak here is $129, right? So that's a lot. I mean, when we think about it, if you had 100 shares of that, you're talking basically was at almost $20. That's $2 grand on 100 shares. I mean, that's a huge move, right? So yeah, this was a nice little setup. I didn't capture the whole thing, obviously. I mean, I did my opening drive trade, and I'm good. I basically traded this and then a little bit of a bounce here, and just said done, done and done. Don't need to press it because the market in general is still all over the place. If you look at the SPYs, which is the S&P 500, just monster move yesterday, huge gap down this morning, has not been able to recover. The Dow Jones, the same thing. I think it gapped down something like 700 at the open after a monster move up, just gapping down. So just all over the place. That has been the week in stocks. I mean, the Fed comes out, surprises, sprinkles money on the market. The market tanks. The next day it's up huge. Then the next day it's gapped down. I mean, it's just all over the place. So definitely a tough environment. So for me, I'm taking the same approach as I'm doing crypto. It's basically make my trades, hit the targets, and get out of the way. Call it done. But it's been a tough market. Tesla still moving higher up at 740, kind of just all over the place. Yesterday had a big drop from the open, gap down this morning, trying to bounce, but just all over the place here. So has been a tough one. But, you know, it's consolidating this monster move it had. Remember, it went basically from, you know, in December from 300s up to almost $1,000 here at the start of the year. And it just had a massive drop, finally pulling back and bouncing a little bit here. So just kind of consolidating that move. But that's the stock market. Not a whole lot other than just the choppy woppy. Let's see here. Go into some of these names here. Yeah, a lot of the Corona names are like, are those good investments? Things like Campbell Soup and 3M. I think the pharmaceuticals are probably the better trades. I've been playing like Moderna. Where's that one here? What was that? mRNA or something like that? Yeah, mRNA. That's been a pretty interesting trade back and forth. Regeneron, Gilead, all those bad boys. And then on the downside, of course, something like Carnival Cruise Lines, just decimated. It just continues to get smackarooed. I'm not catching any of those fallen knives because they're just being dumped infinitum. They're just crazy to the downside here. Same thing with Carnival Cruise Lines, just being dumped infinitum. Look at that. Brutal. Cut in half basically in a month. Went from $51 to $29, so not quite half, but yeesh. All right, let's go see what else we got going on here. Looking at the crypto, I'm gonna close out the stock charts real quick so it doesn't lag on your guys' end. And I'll try to cycle through some of these here a little bit quicker. Looking at Neo BTC here. Neo, you know, I mentioned Neo on the last live stream saying it just feels like it's kind of wedging higher. It's still relatively the same. You know, you're still got this little support here that it's dropped under. Now there's a little bit of resistance starting to form here. So I'm still cautious here. Now it just looks range bound, right? It broke above this support and it's just kind of been chopping back and forth the last couple of days. And so it's just tough. This is a tough one right now to kind of put my finger on for whatever reason. Neo traditionally is a tough trade for me for whatever reason. It's good when it's good, but when it's not, when it's just a tough one. But this, you know, that's what I'm looking. I'm just watching these levels here. I think it could go either way, but I'd be leaning towards this is a bounce into resistance, maybe another leg down. At that point, if you get a little bit of a double bottom or a higher low, then that probably looks a lot better. Just my thoughts. Neo USD, similar. I don't know why I had that line in the chart, but that looks like a bounce targets. And again, I was looking for kind of that rising wedge type of setup here on this. So, you know, the key is really just watch that lower trend line, right? This feels like it's wedging into this resistance level. Just watch that lower trend line. If it cracks, then look for that higher low double bottom type action on the daily chart. That's really my approach on Neo. Lisk, looking at the Lisk, Lisk BTC here. Let me zoom out real quick, get a feel for this one, because remember Lisk was like never going down ever again. Had that crazy move out of nowhere, but has just kind of been quiet since then, really just digesting some of that here. Yeah, this is a tough one. Look at that big candle there, that big outside day. It's just really trading right in the middle between that move right there. Let me zoom in for you guys. That's a pretty wild day there, that big outside day. You got a wick that goes basically to resistance here, and then you have this massive wick that just goes nowhere. So that's tough. It's all over. And how wide is that? That's, I mean, even from here to the top of that is 14%, to the downside is 18%. You're just right smack in the middle. It is starting to really coil up here, so it's kind of one of those maybe next move wins type of scenarios. So yeah, you know, it might not be a bad one to watch. See if it can break out of range. I would probably wait until it actually starts to move out of range personally, instead of preempting it, because this looks like it's still trending lower, right? Making some of this retracement to the downside, but that's just me. Lisk is a little bit tougher. So did we look at this already in terms of retracement levels? You know, it's just kind of vacillating around that 618 level, so maybe that's it. Lisk. All right, XRP. Oh, XRP. Boy, are they in the news these days, and not for good reasons. They're just all kinds of headwinds, fundamental headwinds. XRP moving out of escrow. Founders are going to dump more on you guys. Maybe it's a security. Maybe it's illegal. I mean, holy moly. All over the place here. And just, for me, it looks vulnerable. It's about to test most recent support here versus Bitcoin. I would not be surprised to see this guy crack and drop another leg to the downside. But this is where it's going to have to show up, right? If the bulls are going to show up here, this is where they're going to show up. But there's just so much overhead supply. That's the challenge with XRP is the overhead supply that just continues to flood the market when it's moved out of escrow accounts and sold off to raise capital for Ripple Labs. I mean, they're open about that, so they've been selling. Now I know they said they're going to slow down their selling, but that's just a big fundamental headwind when you have a situation like that. But this one, technically speaking, does not look too positive either way. You have, the moving average is trending lower. You get this big drop, just no sign of bounce action. This has been a very weak bounce here over the last couple of days. Some of these other names have bounced much stronger. This one, just look at how different this looks from a Tezos or a Link, right? They're on a prior uptrend. They consolidate higher. They keep going. This is just completely opposite. All of 2020 has just been choppy. Now it's still holding this support. So if you like it, 2,500 or so has to hold, but it does look vulnerable to me. Looking at it from the USD side, I think 25 cents was that support level. Let me see here. If I remember correctly. No. 22 and a half. But again, pretty anemic bounce so far. It is finding some support here at 22, but again, it's also range bound. If we zoom in, look at that 4-hour chart. If you like it from the USD side, maybe it's a good breakout candidate, but I'd be watching for 24 and a half or so to be taken out. And on the downside, it's kind of just ranging here. A little bit of a higher low being formed, but decision time. Decision time for the XRP. Litecoin. What's going on with the Litecoin here? Litecoin, still holding below that resistance that I had highlighted there. No change really since Monday's bounce. They're just kind of choppy sideways. If we go to the daily chart, bounce not even into the daily 10 EMA, still living below it. So caution remains on this one for now. We'll see if it can finally show some life. Litecoin USD, pretty similar price action here. Support at $57. Bouncing into that 62. If it continues higher, then an ideal bounce target here would be around 67, give or take. And then from there, we'll see. Volume has been light here too the last couple of days, so things are just pausing. At least they're not going down, but they're not necessarily going up. Vertcoin, nice Vertcoin. Apparently, we looked at this one before, but I've got a line on the chart here, and it looks like this most recent rally came almost to the penny. There was a wick back here. This looks like it was prior support. I don't know what I had that line for, but it looks like that's still a level to be watching. It's in play. If it cracks above that, that's probably what I was thinking. If it cracks above that, then that's what I'd be looking for another leg up. But hey, maybe it's going to finally do it. Vertcoin, there's a name from yesteryear. Remember when Vertcoin was going to be like $5 or $20 or something? BAT. Oh, those were the good old days. Back in my day. All right, what am I doing here on BAT? What do I got going on here? BAT, basic attention. Yeah, another one that's just kind of been less than exciting here. I was really liking it back here. It had this really clean setup, was ready to rock, and it did finally break out. It had that leg up, but unfortunately just could not overcome the resistance here, and in fact didn't even quite reach it. The wick started to show up, and of course it didn't help that Bitcoin had that sell-off too, so that pulled it back, and that kind of negated that setup. And so now it's just been kind of choppy and all over the place ever since then. Big picture, I still like it. I think it's still one to watch, but I mean, here's the weekly chart. All right, just very much range bound, just kind of choppy. You don't want to see it lose 2,200. If it loses 2,200 on the downside, then you're testing 1,1700 again. And so probably don't want to see that on the weekly. BAT USD. Let me go to the daily on that guy. It's retested this breakout point twice back in here. All right, this guy, and then now it's kind of at this point here, which is above, so that's positive. I mean, it had that breakdown going higher, so USD side doesn't look too bad. And again, I think that's just more it keeping up with Bitcoin and a very similar price action, so it's going to probably follow BTC to some extent until it breaks range on the BTC pair. Next target up is about 26 cents. Hey, Herman. Welcome to... All right, let's see. Going on to Matic. Matic. You know it's bad when Matic's one of the strong names. But yeah, Matic, I've noticed, has been on the list all week. Started showing up on the list on over the weekend here. Where is it? Why is it so down? Oh, I guess because the RSI is starting to cool. The BMI is starting to cool off. It was the top tier name. I think on the stream on Monday, what did we have at the top? We had Matic, Matic, Link, and there was one more. I can't remember who it was now. Was it Power? Oh, maybe it was KCS. I don't remember. But Matic was one of them. But still going. Matic. Maybe it's finally done being dead. Matic. What a nice little bounce after finally cracking out of this range here this week. That was really the level to be watching. It was just range bound. Look at the volume that came in though. It started to come in when it bounced. So again, you got this big death candle here. So it's gonna anything below that is just a bounce at this point, and it wouldn't surprise me to see like a retracement level hits. So you're right at the 382 here, not even above that, maybe a 50%, and 618. I'd be shocked if it went to 618 personally before pulling back. Could ultimately go higher, but tough. Remember Matic? We nominated Matic last year as the most volatile name of 2019. Continues to prove true, just all over the place. Matic. All right, WRX works. Nice little spike here this week on this bad boy. Most of it came in a single day, pulling up here. Big breakouts, huge volume, holding the highs. That's what you like to see. It gets choppy at the highs, but you want to see those big breakouts that start to hold. Notice the 10 EMA is right there on the daily. The 22 is quickly catching up. So the longer this can sit sideways here in this range, the better, because then that'll allow it to consolidate and set up a base to finally take out, its prior all-time high here. Which, I mean, this is a young chart. It only has, at least on Binance, it only goes back to February, so it's not a lot of history. So getting over that 1600 level and holding it, 1700 if you want to call it that, would be ideal, because then that sets up a big base. And then from there, it could really start to get going. So that'd be nice. But you want to see it kind of breathe here, take a pause, and then break out. So I think that'd be the way to go. But not bad. Not too shabby here. Power. Looking at the power, good consolidation after that move it had. Power had that quick spike, but so far has been consolidating a little bit of an ascending base here. You got higher highs. Or higher lows starting to form here, just kind of edging out, really consolidating here in the last couple of days below that support. So I think it's a good breakout candidate for another watch, another leg up. Nice. It's been a long time. If you go to the big picture chart of power, I mean, look at just really died, found some support. Again, I saw something on partnerships and all that good stuff, but look at the volume on this guy here the last 3 weeks. Just coming back to life. Maybe. All right. We'll do a couple more and then we'll wrap it up. Engine here. I'll cover the big names again, looking at BTC and some of those other real quick. And I'll recap kind of my thoughts on the market, the positions, where we're going from there. But looking, oh, it was Power. That was it. It was Power, Matic, and Link. Thank you. But looking at some of this one's with this engine. Let me go. Engine on Binance here, a little less wiki, still wiki, but it's held this support here on the last couple of days. Good little bounce off support, but like most of these names right now, they got work to do. They had a nice run, they're pulling back. If you're aggressive, then yeah, you kind of look at positions into support zones or right when they start to bounce off support zones, but you got to keep a line in the sand still, because if it rolls over, makes a lower high, then you're looking for another leg down at that point. So got to play it tight here. Got to still stay cautious until things start to settle out and then get going again. And that's just going to take some time, especially on the daily time frames. After the pullback that we've seen, it's been a good pullback. I think it was needed, but it's going to take some time, right? I don't think it's going to be like we pull back, we hit the thing, and it's just V-bottom straight up back to the races. Some names do, but that's just typically not the norm in terms of how things base and settle out. So All right, let's go back to Bitcoin here. Looking at the BTC here, testing 9100. The targets on the upside for me was that 1022 EMA, 9150 to 9200 really, and then above that, let me see, I have another chart marked up. Here we go. Then above 9200, then you're looking at kind of anywhere in between here, right? So 95, 94, that's kind of the next thing. So as far as my current trades go, I've scaled out of the alt trades. I'm still holding the BTC to the long side. And just going to see how it plays out today. Again, it's not on leverage or anything crazy, so it's either way it's fine for me. But I'm looking at ETH here. Now, ETH is interesting because it's right at resistance here, 235 or so. If it finally cracks, then you're looking at 250 as your next target. But the ETH BTC pair doesn't look so hot. I mean, it just looks like it's right at support. So it's got to bounce here, but if it cracks below, call that 0.0252, then I'm thinking you get another leg down on the ETH BTC pair. So it's kind of decision time for this guy. You've got this price range really starting to constrict here, and it's gotten really narrow, still living below those moving averages here over the last day. So it's decision time here for this guy. We'll see where this one goes. But for now, all in all, if the stock market crashes, will Bitcoin follow? You know, I think so. We've already seen it. Some people say Bitcoin leads, but either way, if there's a global risk-off environment where people just want to hedge, at least temporarily, yes. I think the whole notion of it's a safe haven is not as much as people assume. I mean, people are going to make decisions based on emotion, as they usually do, and you know, they're going to say, hey, I'm up 20% on BTC, like book the gains, especially if you're a big fund. You're going to say, we got to make our year, and stocks are not going to be the place to do it. Let's do it in crypto, right? So it's just going to be interesting. But I think longer term, if you do see kind of a global pullback, I do believe it'll act as a broader hedge. I think the halving will factor in some other things. And longer term, second half of 2020, I still think it looks great personally. And I think alts look good too. So big picture, longer term, I'm still bullish. I'm still positive going into 2020. Near term, we've seen a very nice first couple of months. We needed the pullback. We're getting that now. Now it's a question of how long does this consolidation last before we start taking out the highs again and off to the races. So those are my thoughts here. I didn't cover Steam, the Steam scenario. You had a good thought there on Steam in terms of, does Justin start loading up on this bad boy and try to have his way? That's a tough one, man, because part of me says, yeah, he probably will out of ego, and we know how his ego is. But another part of me says, you know, how much more does he want to hold if this project's going to turn out to not be the way he wanted it, right? And he's already been loading up. I mean, there's a lot of, over the last 6 months, right? You can see here those spikes, a lot of accumulation going on. How much more does he want to expose himself to before it's like really over? But you know, that's a tough one. And the other scenario is they've pissed off a lot of people, and now you've got former employees leaving and all this good stuff, and those people no doubt hold a ton of steam. And so if Justin wants to accumulate on any spikes, I would not be surprised. There's going to be plenty of people that would be glad to dump their bags in this range here. Now, in the meantime, yeah, you could catch a spike along with that and do that, and that's a huge spike, right? 60%, 70%, whatever. But longer term, yeah, I'm betting there's some bag holders that are saying, all right, I'd be happy to dump my Steam. Who knows? It's too bad to see it, because Steam was one of the very early projects in 16 that was different, right? That was different than BTC. Obviously, there was ETH, but you had Steam, who was trying to do something cool, decentralized media, and it's even today it's still needed. There's variants of it, but nothing that has been kind of that killer app, right? That's taken the mainstream. You know, nowhere near being a Instagram or TikTok or a Facebook or anything like that. Nowhere near it. We don't have anything in crypto that's even remotely close in terms of user adoption, right? So I would love to see it one day where we finally do get a truly decentralized, you don't have a handful of people controlling things and censoring and all that. It's needed. Even you look at Twitter. I mean, heck, they're trying to boot Jack Dorsey out of Twitter. And I would not be surprised if that happens, that Twitter becomes very censored, just like some of these other platforms. Jack has taken a balance in terms of how much censoring he's willing to do. And that's, if you know his history, you know, he started as kind of that everybody has a voice, kind of give you the blog, the micro blog, as he used to call it before it was a tweet. And so I think he has that balance of people have a place to kind of post and share. And yeah, he's trying to clean up some of the bots and the mess, but if he's gone, I think Twitter goes down the hill in terms of freedom and, you know, some of that sort of thing. But yeah, we'll see. Those are my thoughts on the crypto space there. But all right, my friends, thanks for being here as always. I think that's going to do it for today. Just kind of was looking for a daily update. I was going to do it late yesterday and time ran away from me, but I think doing it today was probably better anyway, because we've seen some of those moves finally play out here on a handful of names. But there's still some names to be looking at. Oh, CPRT was one I was going to see. One of the Tika names. Remember the Tika names? Finally, I thought it was never going to go up ever again. It finally broke trend here. There you go. So it was just like almost a full retrace from the Tika pump down here. Finally popping higher. We'll see if it means anything. But a lot of these names, I mean, it's just, you're better off betting on strength in most cases than picking the weaklings and trying to bottom fish everything. But okay, my friends. Hey, well, thanks for being here. Appreciate you guys as always. Appreciate the likes and the comments. And we'll see you guys in the next one.